Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi, y'all. This is Jerry Williams, a.k.a. TV Jerry. Bell Tower Pictures will launch a new monthly film series called Seen in Virginia, starting next Monday, July 13th at the Byrd Theater. This first event will celebrate the 10th anniversary of By the Grace of Bob, a film that inspired the creation of Bell Tower. These events are designed to be a shared cultural experience, featuring a Virginia film followed by a conversation with the filmmakers and the audience. This time it'll include Bell Tower's current president, Craig Martin, founding president David Powers, and actor Daphne Reed, all of whom, by the way, have been on this show. Seen in Virginia will continue on the second Monday of every month, and I'll include a link on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
As readers, we would get sometimes 2 scripts a night. We'd pick them up around 7 p.m., read the script, and produce what's called coverage,
which is basically a book report.
A synopsis of the material, and then a page where there's sort of a paragraph dedicated to the quality of the writing, the characterization, the dialogue, the setting, and then a summary, which is basically whether there's a commercial potential.
Those were today's guests, Mark Weinberg and Victoria Fraser, talking about being a script reader in L.A. In early June, I featured this writing team talking about their film Outrage, which they co-wrote and executive produced. This week, they're back to travel back to their earlier days when they made their living as writers in L.A., which includes working for Disney, writing for Henry Winkler, and getting hate mail from Leonard Nimoy.
Sifter Review of the Week.
Dutton Ranch on Paramount Plus. This is the latest spinoff from Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone series, all of which I've loved. It takes up at the end of the original show, when 3 of the remaining characters leave their beloved Montana for Texas. The powerhouse daughter, Kelly Riley, her devoted husband and ranch manager, Cole Hauser, and their adopted son, Finn Little. Riley's fearless performance drives the show, while Hauser provides the solid, tough center, and Little emotes innocence. The tough men and even tougher women also include Annette Bening as the competing owner and Ed Harris as the very involved vet. In addition to the cultural differences, they run into the expected obstacles, the biggest being the main ranch in the area, owned by Benning's character. The sharp dialogue and sometimes surprising plotting keeps this interesting, while the all-around forceful performances make it even more effective. As per usual, the gorgeous cinematography and montages of cowboy activities add some country warmth. Showrunner Chad Freehan has followed Sheridan's signature style with stakes that get more daring and drama to match. It's a continual struggle to keep this series out of melodrama territory, but the assured filmmaking helps. I gave Dutton Ranch 3.5 out of 5 stars. Let's move back in time. I'll put a little rewind sound effect in. And let's go back to L.A. You mentioned Disney. What are some of the fun stories about working on some of those projects? And tell us a little bit more about what a script reader actually does.
When the studios are looking for material, they work with producers who have companies. They also have people on staff who are looking for manuscript, a book prior to publication.
Right.
Perfect example of this, I just read a piece of fiction called Yesteryear, and Anne Hathaway read it as a manuscript and snatched up the film rights, and she's going to develop it and star in it.
Now, when Vic says she read it, what would have happened is, she heard about it, and she had some of her readers, somebody who she trusts, read the book and then say, oh my God, you have got to purchase this. Then she would have read it, because they get a lot of material. Studios have a bunch of people reading for them.
And the production companies also, because Mark and I worked at a company called Interscope.
Which now just the only part that's left is the
record
music division, but they used to have a film division. And they had actually a number of successful films, including 3 Men and a Baby.
Outrageous Fortune. They did a whole series in the 80s with Bette Midler and
Jumanji.
Yep, Jumanji. Yeah. As readers, which actually is really helpful if you're also a writer. Mm-hmm. As readers, we would get sometimes 2 scripts a night. We'd pick them up around 7 p.m., read the script, and produce what's called coverage,
which is basically a book report.
A synopsis of the material, and then a page where there's sort of a paragraph dedicated to the quality of the writing, the characterization, the dialogue, the setting, and then a summary, which is basically whether there's a commercial potential. You can also suggest actors. Like I read something that I thought would have been a perfect Jim Carrey vehicle, I remember. And then the reader or script analyst will suggest like pass or approve the writer and pass or approve the material. So it's very rare that you read something and say, well, this is a slam dunk for this company at this time. But it led us to read hundreds, if not thousands,
I'm sure.
of screenplays.
I've read thousands of scripts.
Yeah, he has, because teaching also.
If a lot of my students end up going out to LA, it's the first job they will get working in the industry.
It's a reader.
And they decide based on their coverage whether or not this production company agrees with what the student is writing, whether or not they actually stay on.
So it not only helps with your writing, but it also helps you avoid common mistakes because you can see the weakness in something.
Right,
you can
right.
also,
See what they like.
you're never spending 2 hours of your life or 3 hours of your evening hoping that it's a piece of junk. You're always hoping that you're going to uncover something magical. The story analyst or scriptreader that position has existed in Hollywood from time immemorial. There are obviously limitations. You might have read something that is brilliant, but it's completely wrong for the intended audience or the studio or
This is not what they're looking for.
and you have to, you kind of say like, this is really great. I love this story about Joan of Arc. And no, Julia Roberts' company is not going to be interested in this.
Right. You have some good examples of something that you read that was like, this is going to be it, and it was, or vice versa, something like this is not going to be a hit and it wasn't, that you can talk about?
Yeah. So I read this script and it was submitted by an actor who had had some success.
Who shall go unnamed, I'm assuming.
Oh,
No, he's gonna be-
Okay.
So I read the script and I go, this has been done before. It was called Little Big Man, and it was a much better script than this. I would pass. And then there was this Kevin Costner movie, you may remember, that won the Oscar for Best Picture.
Passed on Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
You passed on it.
In your defense, it was not the right material for that studio.
And I stand by my assessment of the work. Still, I don't know if you were a fan of the movie.
Yeah, I love the movie, as I recall. I'm sure I reviewed it. I can find my review and see.
Footnote.
Dances with Wolves was, and I'm going to read a clip from my review right now. Kevin Costner stars as a free-spirited soldier who abandons the Civil War for a look at the frontier. His visit to the Wild West turns into a metaphysical and cultural transformation as he discovers the native Sioux. Through its 3-hour-plus length, the film never loses its charm. Director Kevin Costner has kept the emotions sensitive without letting the messages become too brazen. The performances are winning, the cinematography often breathtaking, the story involving, and the little moments magical. A touching and humorous tale of the human spirit.
Don't attribute any of that to this guy.
Oh, I've got some really funny stories as a film critic in Los Angeles.
He has hate mail from Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, great.
Handwritten from France.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was in a hotel. What happened was I didn't like Star Trek 3. And I mentioned something that he was not happy about. Somebody who worked at ILM and was working on the effects and had headaches. They said, oh my God, he does not understand green screens. He doesn't understand matte lines. So I mentioned that in my review. Oh, very fast.
Wasn't this Nimoy's directorial debut? Or it was.
Oh, so that's why that applied. I was going to say an actor doesn't need to know about those things.
No, he did the film on the condition that he got to direct it. Right. But he wrote Mark a letter. He wrote a letter to the
publisher.
magazine.
He wrote it to the editor. All
I
handwritten.
assume you have it framed somewhere.
Oh yeah.
If you want, I see if I see in Richmond, I can hold it up.
And the very best part of it is that not only did the editor stand by Mark's take and they protected his sources, but the next issue had a brilliant headline, which was, when Spock said, "Live long and prosper," he didn't mean Mark Weinberg.
Great, great. Victoria, have you had any kind of stories about anything that you read or some other experiences? Because y'all worked at USA, Dick Clark Productions.
All right, I got a good one. Pitching a thriller to Dick Clark.
Not his production.
Because Dick was not there. His dogs were, but he wasn't there. And we had two ideas. And one of them was a thriller in which a young woman who had been a professional athlete, professional skier, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to save her husband, she has to undergo a tremendous physical ordeal. And she's still dealing with PTSD from a terrible accident and all kinds of physical obstacles to save her husband. And we pitched it, and the executive looked at us and said, "So could it be on a beach? Could she be wearing a swimsuit?"
And they just kept pushing it further and further right down that line. And we went, I guess, sure.
This is where the language of twins that develops as a couple, this is where it's really helpful because, I was like instinctively like, no, she's like an Olympic skier. And it's like, it's not a DNA kind of story. It didn't end up writing that one.
And I learned that the hard way when I was at UCLA, and I wrote a screenplay about dyslexia because I have dyslexia. And Henry Winkler's, who also has dyslexia, his company really liked it. And they brought me in. So we were talking about the script. He said, not Henry, the production executive. Really, really like it. But the ending we would need to work on. I said, I just don't see that change in the ending. It's not kind of black and white. It's gray. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, we really, really appreciate your perspective. And thank you very much. And they moved on. So we learned that lesson.
Because I came at writing from a development standpoint. So I had been on the other side of the desk listening to writers bringing ideas to me. And so what I tried very hard to do was to work with them creatively to solve problems or to address things that were missing or, again, to sort of tailor the material for the Disney Channel audience, which at that time was actually before the success of the tween genre, and it was more family oriented. This was when we were doing shows like Anne of Green Gables. And so if people brought in material that really, it didn't feature, multi-age storylines, we would try to figure out a way to work the missing thing. Generally, you'd have a young protagonist, but how about the librarian who has, resources to help them find clues to solve the mystery. So we did a lot of Mickey Mouse Club movies and things like that, which were serialized. And so all of that kind of problem solving comes to bear when you're working on your own material or working with a producer or a studio. And Robin had some fantastic ideas that we incorporated into a draft that was ultimately the draft that got shot. She had a couple of real twists that set it way up there. And so we were really happy to work with a creative mind like that.
Footnote.
Robin is Robin Rose Singer, the director of their feature Outrage, which we featured in their previous podcast. So what is the biggest, most successful project that y'all have written?
That's been produced?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, we haven't had that many things produced, which is one of the reasons why we went ahead with this project.
How do you make a living?
How did we make a living back in the day?
Well, then and now.
Having worked optioned.
Footnote.
Options in the film industry is a temporary contract that rents the exclusive rights to a creative work like a book or a screenplay to a producer to prevent the author from selling it to somebody else.
The way the studios work is they purchase a lot of product.
Sure,
and they produce less than 10% of that.
They just don't want anybody else to have it, so they buy it to lock it up.
Initially, the intention is, hey, we're going to make this.
Right.
Oftentimes, what happens is they might get an actor they have in mind, and he might express interest. He might even agree to do the film, but then he backs out. Or the executive who brought this project in, because again, it's producers working in a production company, they leave. We had a situation with a film at USA. It was in pre-production.
Yeah.
and they changed the president of USA, and he immediately canceled the project.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
what they call when it's shelved or when a project is in turnaround. So
Yeah.
eventually the rights reverted to us, which is, great in a way. And we worked with different producers to try and get it set up elsewhere. But one of the trickier things in the years that we've been working in screenwriting is that the pool is shrinking in terms of original material, original stories that are being bought, developed, produced, shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. So much that the studios produce is based on underlying property. And it's not just Marvel Comics, it's, Battleship.
But you also will see a lot of young filmmakers making their own pictures for very little money.
Right.
And if those films hit, like Obsession.
Footnote.
Obsession was directed by YouTube director Curry Barker for about $750,000 and has grossed more than $330 million. Backrooms is at $301 million and was made by a 20-year-old director, Kane Parsons, for $10 million. Matt Bellany, whose podcast, The Town, is probably the number one podcast on showbiz. He was talking about that, and he was saying that one of the things that's interesting is like Roger Corman, back in the day, was creating all these great filmmakers. MTV, suddenly all these people who were making music videos became directors, like David Fincher and Spike Jonze. And now it's YouTube. It's creating a whole generation of young filmmakers who are already successful on YouTube, and then they're getting these contracts. And that's both of those movies are exactly that.
What about Iron Lung? What
Yeah,
about
Iron Lung? Yeah.
That really, really threw the industry because not only did he finance the movie, he distributed the movie.
Yeah.
Still had a huge hit.
While the studio is shrinking, shrinking, the fact that the medium has changed, the distribution, the fact that you can shoot a film on your phone
Right.
and actually edit and get it to an audience if you're savvy, that's revolutionized it. It's just a completely different environment. And we were working within the studio system at the time when changes started to happen, the consolidation, the monopolization. You think about advertising and how much advertising is now dominated by celebrities. My friends who are actors who used to do a lot of voiceover, they do a lot of Honda commercials. Their world has shrunk as well because as writers, studios started to want to work with only star writers, just like star actors. And so, yeah, well, but in other words, the days of some complete unknown in a bidding war and selling it for $1 gazillion and it getting made, that has largely dried up.
Right.
And generally, sort of the turn of Hollywood is to things that are instantly recognizable, familiar. Yeah, you're working with writers who have a track record of working in that genre.
And I try to explain this to students
without discouraging them.
If they're fortunate and they sell their script, what will happen is they will get one pass, one chance of the rewrite. Development executives get together and say, okay, let's make these changes. The writer makes those changes. They're off the project usually at that point. And then they start bringing in name writers to
punch it up.
I'm sure you know the whole thing when you're looking at the movie poster, and sometimes there's an ampersand and sometimes there's an and.
Right.
And it tells you like how many people, like if you just see story credit for that film, that's the first writer. That's the person who actually wrote the original script.
And the Writers Guild absolutely oversees that process because they have to compare drafts and say, okay, this person contributed, 20%, so they are not the first writer. Then you have the, I guess, problem if Tom Cruise is hired to star because Tom Cruise has writers that he works with exclusively, and they're going to come in and write a Tom Cruise movie.
So what is the difference between an A&D and an ampersand?
If you see an ampersand, that means like a writing team.
Like the two of you.
Okay, so let's say we sell our script.
It's Weinberg and Fraser with an ampersand.
Right. And then you see and, that means that's the next person who came in behind and did a rewrite.
Right.
They did enough change to the script that they actually get the credit on the script, as opposed to a lot of people just do ghost writing, which is to
Like a
say they'll
polish.
just come in and they'll improve the dialogue, and they know up front they're going to make a lot of money, but they're not going to get their name on the screen.
Sure. Yeah.
There are screenwriters who are extremely wealthy based on script doctoring alone. And script
Wow.
doctoring is generally, 2 weeks, punch up the dialogue, or, make the woman's part more interesting or something. That's what
So,
the script doctor
but
does.
if you see the and, that means that's the person who came in afterwards
Right.
and did some work on the script.
Right. You mentioned the Guild, WGA. I'm assuming you're members of the Guild.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did y'all do during the strike?
We struck.
Well,
We protested.
Well, you went out in LA, so you weren't picketing.
It's interesting because Boston had a great turnout on the Boston Common, which is where we always have, God knows, we know our protests, right?
Right.
So down in the Boston Common, there's a huge rally for the Writers Guild, and SAG members showed up, AFL-CIO showed up. There was a huge turnout. And also Mark's union through education. And some of the most interesting things that were at stake during the strike, in order to address the issue of AI, one of the speakers mentioned she was an actress in Boston who does a lot of background. So, Ben Affleck shoots a film here and she's in a crowd scene, or she's the waitress who puts down the coffee, the Dunkin' in front of him. She said the last time she was in for background or extra work, the producers insisted on her signing a waiver, and they scanned her entire person, and they can use it in perpetuity in any film, and she will not receive residuals.
Right.
And she has no control over where it's used. So that was, I think, the most profound speech I heard at the rally, because it really did throw into sharp relief the impact of technology on the filmmaking process on an individual. Because if you eliminate the background, you eliminate some of craft services, and they don't have to feed as many people, and the payroll can be affected. So it's like everything, there's sort of a domino. And the Writers Guild was saying, hey, before you decide that we need 10 new episodes of Friends written and filmed via AI, how about we work out some guide rails on this? Because theoretically, you could get ChatGPT to write you a new episode of Friends.
Theoretically. I don't know if you've tried this. I asked ChatGPT to write a screenplay in the voice of Quentin Tarantino. It's fun to do.
Are you
because it's like pulling out every cliche from Quentin, and it's horrible. So I don't worry. Like, people always say to me, like, aren't you worried that your students are writing using AI to write their scripts? And then it's like, well, one of two things. One, if they're using AI, they're not learning anything. Then they're in school, and this is the time to make your mistakes. But two, it's freaking horrible. The writing is just shredded. So it's fun to do, just to see how bad the writing is.
But I think you can appreciate how, in terms of the Guild's position on it, any creative field.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, you're a journalist, you're in broadcast, you know this. It's any field like this, there is that sense that what is being presented could be inauthentic, or at least it's not generated by human creativity. It's generated by something else, which it's not necessarily, good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. It's just that without guide rails and without preparation and protections for the people who make their living as background actors or as screenwriters, there's an unfair advantage. And Writers Guild, I mean, we had to strike during the advent of streaming, because all of the contracts and structure based on broadcast television do not apply when Netflix gives you a whole new season of Breaking Bad at once.
She made a good point, and since they said goodbye in the original podcast, I don't have their farewells here. That was today's guests, Victoria Fraser and Mark Weinberg, talking about working as writers in Los Angeles. They're currently living in New England, where they wrote a thriller, and I'll have a link to my podcast about that film on the webpage for the show at TV Jerry.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Moana. Disney continues creating live-action versions of its animated hits, and this is the latest, with Dwayne Johnson reprising his voice role in the original. Evil Dead Burn. This new version of the Evil Dead franchise is produced but not directed by creator Sam Raimi. The Invite. Olivia Wilde directed and stars in this comedy about a dinner party with her upstairs neighbors that gets interesting, also with Seth Rogen, Edward Norton, and Penelope Cruz. Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass. When her fiancé uses their Celebrity Pass agreement, a Midwest bride travels to Hollywood to seek revenge by pursuing her own celebrity encounter, with Zoe Deutsch, John Hamm, Ken Marino, and John Slattery. Night Nurse, another thriller centered around seniors. This time, a series of scam calls unsettles the retirement community.
TV and streaming.
Little House on the Prairie on Netflix. While most of the books were seen through the eyes of a child and written for children, this series offers a more adult POV of the late 19th century American West. The 5-Star Weekend on Peacock. Jennifer Garner plays a famous food blogger whose life isn't as perfect as it seems, and her friends come to her Nantucket home to help, including Darcy Carden, Gemma Chan, Regina Hall, and Chloe Sevigny. The Westies on MGM+. J.K. Simmons is the leader of this famously brutal Irish gang that ran New York's Hell's Kitchen, created by the man who gave us Narcos. Susanna and Elvira, No Plan B on Netflix. Two former best friends reunite after 2 years apart to organize the celebrity wedding of the year. Project Runway on Hulu drops its new season. If you missed the Virginia Museum of History and Culture's spectacular illumination that was projected on their building for 4 nights in June, or even if you saw it, which I did, you can hear all about the complex process of assembling hundreds of images and bringing them to life for this presentation. My guest will be Sam Florer, Director of Public Programs for VMHC. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.